What's happening, fam? John here from AF Anime, back to review yet another chapter of Dragon Ball Super, this time chapter 86, which has been out for a couple days, and it's been titled All Out Bout. And if you can't tell by the title, that basically means that this chapter is incredibly action heavy, so we have a whole lot to talk about in terms of what we see, but not a whole lot to talk about in terms of speculation or what we can expect in the upcoming chapters. Now, before we can dig into this chapter, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button for me. I would greatly appreciate it. I do have more Dragon Ball content planned for this channel to be coming out really soon, not just the monthly chapter reviews. Also, on this channel I do cover One Piece and anime and manga in general, so if you guys are down for that, please subscribe. If you have been subscribed, thank you for your support. Now, without any further ado, chapter 86 of Dragon Ball Super, and I guess one of the first things we can talk about is the many abilities that Gas puts on display for like the first third of this chapter, as he really just kind of puts the hands to Goku and just beats him down in an embarrassing fashion. And honestly, it kind of takes the wind out of the sails when it comes to this new Ultra Instinct form that we've seen from Goku, but honestly, I guess it kind of works for the narrative, so I'm not going to complain too much there. Right out the gate, in terms of these new abilities, one of the first things we see is a Star Wars inspired move, which looks awfully similar to the dark side power, which is titled Force Choke. And this is basically right out of the book. I mean, it's not like just a cute reference. It literally looks exactly like the scene where Darth Vader chokes someone. It's a cool reference to be sure, but at the same time, it was just interesting to see. It does technically fit with Gas's progression as he ages and is becoming more powerful as he nears the end of his life. But to be honest with you guys, if I had to say so, this is a technique that I wouldn't care to see in the Dragon Ball universe again after this point. Moving along though, there is another technique that we get to see from Gas early in this chapter, and that is a technique that is basically him creating a twister. I'm not sure if it's a key twister or if he's just making the wind move in a certain way. However, it does have the effect of keeping Goku trapped in place, so that way Gas can get some free hits in. Now again, this is something that we've seen before with the fight between Goku and Pikkon, and Pikkon had the ability to create this twister and then damage Goku, but from what I can tell, it's a bit different on how the attacks have been delivered. So it is definitely a cool callback, but seeing this does actually make me wonder if the wish to be the universe's strongest is related to the abilities and the power-ups of everyone in the universe, because these are all things that we've seen before, minus the whole weapon manipulation thing. After dealing some serious damage to Goku using this tornado-based technique, we do get another callback to a much more recent fight when Goku developed this whole ki-based kaiju form of himself when he defeated Moro. And I'll admit, when I first saw that technique being used by Goku, I just kind of thought, what the hell? Dragon Ball must really be running out of ideas. But the more I think about it for this context, I think it fits a lot better with Gas, whose ability is actually to manipulate ki into weapons. So regarding Gas in general, or the way he's depicted in this chapter, I was pretty satisfied. I liked the way that his aged form brought new techniques, new abilities, and even gave him the upper hand clearly against Goku, who also just had a power-up of his own. Now, in regards to Gas and his flexing during this chapter, it was pretty impressive. I did like what I saw. I just felt that it was a bit rushed. I mean, all of this took place within, I think, 15 to 16 pages, and honestly, it probably could have been stretched out a good deal longer. In fact, the rushed nature of this chapter kind of gives me the feeling that the fight for Gas is not quite over yet, and there is one line in particular that also kind of leans towards that, but I'll talk about that more towards the end of the chapter review. But what I will say about the rushed nature of this chapter is it does set up for a decent amount of dialogue, and then we get the cool idea of every single protagonist in this arc taking part in the defeat of this character, even if it does seem a bit convenient. For one, we have Minato, who all of a sudden just remembers that he has the ability to make people fall asleep, and he could have literally used that at any point throughout this arc, and even the flashback when he was with Bardock and a young Granola. That does seem like a bit of an ass pull, and we even have Vegeta stopping Gas in his powered up form when Vegeta is strictly in his base state. This honestly doesn't make a whole lot of sense, considering in the previous chapter, Gas was taking on Ultra Ego Vegeta and Ultra Instinct Goku. And look, I do understand that Gas was taking on two incredibly powerful enemies and may have been a bit distracted not to notice, but that just seems a little out of place. At the very least, it would have made a lot more sense for Vegeta to temporarily go into SS Blue or possibly even Ultra Ego for a couple seconds to hold off Gas for Granola's attack. Terrible writing in my opinion. Now, as I've said before in a previous chapter review, I did believe that Granola should be the one to wrap up this arc. Although I don't feel this is the end, this was a good opportunity to have the three protagonists work together, even going so far as to have Minato and Oatmeal get a little bit of shine in this chapter to assist for this victory. Now, when it comes to Goku's depiction in this chapter, it wasn't that bad. He was kind of tanking some attacks and holding his own to some extent before Granola interrupted, but ultimately I do feel like it's a bit underwhelming to have this new Ultra Instinct form given to us in the last chapter, only to have it one up nearly immediately. I mean, narratively, it does make sense, as Goku, Vegeta, and Granola should all be fairly spent when it comes to ki, so maybe we can't really see the Ultra Instinct perfected properly put on display in a similar fashion to how we haven't seen Vegeta properly use Ultra Ego yet. But from what we've seen from Goku, despite the ass whooping that he did take in this chapter, it was for the most part fine. Now, when it comes to Minato coming in clutch in this chapter and stopping Oil and Maki using the power of hypnosis, I have a few problems with that. I have a few problems with this character in general for this chapter, but I'll talk more about that towards the end of the video. For now, I just gotta point out the inconsistency here. I mean, if this character has the ability of hypnosis as a very useful and powerful technique, enough to put Oil and Maki to sleep, how has this not popped up at any point in this arc, whether it be in the past with Bardock or in the present with Goku, Granola, and Vegeta? I mean, I'm mind blown here. I mean, having the Namekian ability to heal someone's injuries is fine and all, even though there's some issues I'm going to talk about here in a second. This is something that you absolutely need to tell your allies. Hey, I can put people to sleep. That's incredibly useful. All of my complaints aside, I will say that I did like that they incorporated him into this final attack. Now, when it comes to the Heeter Clan, or more specifically the three siblings who aren't fighting, there's really not a whole lot of new information or updates in terms of how they act and behave in this chapter. We still have Elec being a kind of snobby dick about everything, and then we also have the other two siblings, Oil and Maki, being concerned for their brother's well-being. So, to quickly sum up the contents of this chapter, for the first third or so, Goku was getting utterly handled by Geyser Mode Gas, and after Granola interfered, he charged up a beam, and every protagonist possible, Goku, Vegeta, Oatmeal, and Minato, bought him some time until he could land his final attack, which is an okay way to defeat a big bag, but I'll talk about my issues with it here in a sec. For now, I'll give you a rating for this chapter, and I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Now, I'm pretty sure that's probably my lowest rating that I've ever given a Dragon Ball Super chapter here on this channel, but I have my reasons for that. And my main point is that the story was just abysmal. There are so many issues with what went down in this chapter that I just feel I have to address them here. So the first thing I'm going to talk about are the massive inconsistencies with Minato and his abilities in this chapter. Now, if I'm not mistaken, in a previous chapter, he stated that he had the ability to heal wounds, but not replace ki. That's fine, but in this chapter, it seems that was almost ass backwards. We have Granola, who somehow isn't fully healed when it comes to his eyes, so he wasn't able to see. I'm sure that was just to set up Oatmeal to be involved in the final attack, but that just seems like the writers were getting lazy and forgot how they set his powers up. And then we have this whole hypnosis thing. That's an incredibly crucial ability which could have been effective at any point in this character's existence and his dealings with the Heeter Clan. So those are just two examples of the glaring issues when it comes to the story for this chapter. Now, as I've said, another writing issue is the fact that Goku, Granola, and Vegeta should all be pretty much spent on the amount of energy that they have left. Despite the fact that their mortal wounds should have been healed, neither of them really should be operating without much ki. I can understand how Goku was depicted. That actually kind of works in terms of him not having enough energy to put on a strong offensive. We also have Vegeta going in for a save in his base form, also makes sense. But how the heck does Granola have the ability to, or at least the ki reserve, to build up an attack that is strong enough to defeat the world's or the universe's strongest fighter? That literally makes no sense at all. Another issue I had with the writing for this story was the save that Granola had interfering with Goku and Gas's fight. There should be a massive red flag there, considering that the Heeter Clan, or more specifically Elec, has this grand plan to take over the universe by defeating Frieza, yet he wasn't smart enough to realize that Granola only broke up the fight. He didn't actually shoot Goku down, which he absolutely could have done as one of the universe's best marksmen. Now, there are a couple more issues I had with this chapter's writing or storytelling, but those ones are the ones most worth pointing out. So the 6 rating out of 10, I think, was well earned. I mean, the artwork was fine. The action was entertaining. It's just the story was so bad, it's hard to thoroughly enjoy the art and the action. So now that the rating's out of the way, I can talk about my thoughts about how this arc is going to continue going forward. To be clear, as I said earlier, I don't think that this is the end for Gas. I do think we are going to see some new manifestation of his abilities within the next chapter or two. And this line right here, where he says that his power has been liberated from his flesh, opens up the possibility that he may be able to manifest himself in a new form, or at the very least, kind of operating a ki-based body to attack and to finish this fight. I mean, that quote from Gas and Goku pointing out that his body and his power were out of sync could indicate that that is in fact where we're going to go within the next chapter or two. And the only other thing that makes me feel like this might be the case is that the chapter itself, or the conclusion in this chapter, just felt incredibly rushed and incredibly short. And honestly, that just feels a bit out of place when it comes to Dragon Ball Super. The defeat of the big bads throughout Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball as a whole typically are a bit more climactic and a bit more emotionally woven. But then again, I could be very wrong here. Maybe Gas has in fact been defeated and he is no longer going to be a combatant throughout this arc. And maybe my thoughts on early reviews where I suspected or speculated that Elec will be the strongest and the final villain for this arc, that could come to fruition. In either case, let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are, or what you think might be happening next when it comes to this arc, as I personally feel it's not over. I'm always open ears, but guys, that is going to do it for this chapter review for Dragon Ball Super chapter 86, which is titled All Out Bout, which is exactly what we got. And if you guys haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. It would help me out and help out the channel. I will be back with some more Dragon Ball related content very soon, but for now, my name is John with AFA, and I'll see you in the next video.